The first red flag was the go live cake they brought in, triple tier buttercream monstrosity with "to the moon," scrawled in Comic Sans. I was elbows deep in staging logs while they posed for selfies around a balloon arch like they just cured cancer. Meanwhile, I was trying to patch a ghost bug in the payment pipeline that only triggered when a customer used both a promo code and Apple Pay. Jared said it wasn't a priority. Jared also once said he thought API stood for Automated Payment Interface. So yeah, real visionary. I was the only one left in the office that Thursday night, eyes bloodshot, slurping cold noodles out of a coffee mug, running test cases through the staging server. We were 3 days from launch, and the damn thing kept bypassing funds capture under one obscure condition. I dropped in a temporary patch to trace the failure point, just a single uncommented line, capture funds, / reinstate before production. A bright, blinking note to myself, a breadcrumb with a warning label. They never read warnings. And speaking of warnings, before I get too deep into this war story, quick shout out to the 97% of you listening without subscribing. I get it, commitment is hard, but hitting that follow button is like commenting your code. It helps everyone stay sane. Thanks for fueling the madness. Anyway, I was their payments girl. That's what Jared used to call me in meetings. Our payments girl will handle that, he'd say, like I wasn't the one who built the transaction pipeline from scratch after their Stripe integration failed spectacularly last year. I carried the system through that fiasco, duct taping APIs with coffee-fueled tenacity and sheer spite. Never once asked for credit. Just quietly deployed, debugged, and documented everything like the responsible little cog they expected me to be. Except lately, the cracks were showing. The new intern, Braxton, yes, really, once asked me what a Boolean was. He was hired because he had energy and understood Gen Z. He also couldn't explain the difference between staging and production, but Jared kept looping him into meetings while leaving me off the invites. Said my feedback was too granular. I started keeping a change log of my own. Not the one in the repo, the real one. Timestamps, diffs, everything I touched. I knew my days were numbered when Jared scheduled a process simplification review without including anyone from engineering. That's like planning a moon landing and forgetting to invite the astronaut, so I worked, quietly, furiously, with one foot already out the door in my mind. I didn't plan revenge. I didn't set traps. I just did my job. And when the final sprint hit, I was in the trenches, cleaning edge cases and flagging logic loops while the rest of the team played foosball and took selfies with a cardboard cutout of the product mascot. There's a special kind of exhaustion that comes from watching clowns rehearse for a parade you built the floats for. My last build, v.3.14.7, was my cleanest yet. Final integration test passed. Logs clean. One single toggle left uncommented for sandbox purposes, as a temporary measure until I could validate Apple Pay's shenanigans. 1. Line. I left it live in staging with a giant note in both the code and the documentation. Reinstate capture funds, for prod, all caps, bold font, color-coded. Even a Slack ping scheduled for Monday morning to double confirm. Friday I came in early. Jared was already there, sipping one of those smug oat milk cortados and scrolling Slack like he ran the stock exchange. He didn't look up when I entered. Just waved a hand and said, "Hey, can you hop into the war room later? Need a quick sync." What I got instead was a surprise HR meeting. Restructuring, team synergy. No further action required on your part. The buzzwords stacked like IKEA furniture. No eye contact. Just a forced smile from Lacey in HR and a printed exit checklist with my name misspelled. They locked me out of the system before I could even reach my laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked out, chin high, past a Slack message still in red from Braxton. "Hey, quick cue, what does sandbox flag equals true do again?" 3 days before launch. Payments pipeline still in test mode. Nobody watching the repo. Jared's golden boy in charge. I didn't plan revenge, but sometimes revenge plans itself. It happened at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday. The kind of time slot you reserve for breakups, dental surgeries, and corporate backstabbing. Lacey from HR hovered outside my cubicle like a ghost with a clipboard, eyes darting like she was trying to avoid catching my soul. "Quick sync with leadership," she mumbled. I followed her down the hallway, past Jared's glass-walled ego chamber where he was fake laughing into a phone, legs kicked up like he was pitching crypto to a yacht club. The meeting was in conference room C, the one with the flickering light and the smell of reheated tuna. Lacey shut the door behind us and Jared didn't even stand. Just tapped his iPad, didn't meet my eyes, and launched into the speech like he'd practiced it on a mirror. "We're making agile realignments," he said, like that meant anything. "Moving toward a more scalable org structure. Your skill set's been foundational, but we're pivoting to a leaner model. Foundational, like the concrete they walk on before deciding it's too gray." I looked at the folder they slid across the table. Severance? None. Cobra details? Maybe. Access to my machine? Gone. Effective immediately, Jared added, still not looking at me. "No need to wrap up. We've got it covered." I asked, very calmly, very clearly, if I could push one final patch to prod. "One patch. It's minor, just cleanup," I said. "Staging stable, but there's a toggle, we're good," he cut in. Braxton's already looped in. Braxton, the intern, the human vape pen, the guy who once asked me if SQL was like Excel but spicier. They escorted me back to my desk like I was a threat. Security badge deactivated before I even reached the elevator. My login, dead, my Slack, disconnected mid-keystroke. I watched my last scheduled commit hang in limbo on my second monitor, one line shy of production ready. They took my keycard, but they forgot I had something better, memory. I had the logs, the screenshots, and the changelog I emailed to myself weekly like a paranoid librarian. By 6:12 p.m., I was on my couch, wine glass full, terminal closed. I didn't rage. I didn't tweet. I just opened the private repo backup I kept on an encrypted drive and scanned the last few entries. Build 3.14.7. Final commit message, fixes Apple Pay loop edge case. Re-enable capture funds before launch. The function, still commented out. The flag, still set to sandbox. The comment, still in plain sight. / capture funds, / reinstate before production. I refreshed Slack from my phone. My access was gone. But my alt account, yes, I had one, still worked just fine. And that's when I saw it. 7:03 p.m. Braxton in the main hash engineering channel. Hey y'all, what sandbox flag equals true doing in prod? 3 laughing emojis, then silence. Then a private message accidentally posted publicly from Jared. Shut that down before finance sees it, too late. I stared at my screen, heartbeat steady. It wasn't vengeance. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was inevitability. You don't fire your fire marshal and expect the building not to burn. There was no farewell Slack thread. No we'll miss you. Card with a Starbucks gift card tucked inside. Just the quiet humiliation of walking past people pretending not to notice. The silence of colleagues too stunned or too cowardly to speak. Jared didn't even nod. Braxton gave me a pity wave like I was a substitute teacher getting fired mid-semester. I left my mug behind. It said talk is cheap. Code is proof. That felt appropriate. The air outside felt too fresh, too clean, like the world didn't know the chaos that was coming. I didn't go home right away. I drove, aimless, windows down, music loud, that strange hollow euphoria hitting just beneath the ribs. It's not joy, it's release. Like when your foot finally stops cramping after a week-long marathon. You don't celebrate, you just breathe. By the time I pulled into my apartment lot, dusk had settled over everything like a shrug. My cat greeted me at the door with his usual indifference. I fed him, kicked off my shoes, and opened my laptop. Encrypted volume, local backup. Repo snapshot dated 2 days ago. I scrolled. There it was, staring at me like an old lover who knew all my secrets. / capture funds, / reinstate before production still commented. Still live. And just below it, the line Jared's golden boy had copy-pasted without reading. Sandbox flag equals true. I sat back, fingers hovering over the keys. Every instinct I had screamed to message someone. File a quiet bug, leave a breadcrumb, save the ship before it sunk. But I didn't, because they made it clear I wasn't welcome on that ship. I closed the repo. I didn't delete it. I just closed it, like putting a loaded gun back in the drawer. I spent the weekend like a civilian. Took walks, baked banana bread, listened to a podcast about cult leaders, and started mentally replacing Charles Manson with Jared. It fit weirdly well, but I wasn't at peace. Not really. Something about unfinished code claws at your brain like a door left slightly ajar. You don't know what's behind it, but you can't rest until it's shut. So I did the next best thing. I set up inbox filters, Gmail, work address, personal address, burner address. Keywords, urgent Patricia launch payment issue system error payment gateway help WTF is sandbox flag inbox set to thread automatically. Notifications on mute. Alerts only for high priority. Then I closed the lid and sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the soft hum of my fridge and the small, slow unraveling of a storm they never saw coming. Crossing a line isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's a quiet, invisible shift when you go from being the solution to letting the problem find itself. They trained me to document everything, so I did, even the silence. Launch day looked like a tech cult wedding. Streamers, branded cupcakes, a photo booth with giant sunglasses, and a sign that read, Payment-Powered Future. Jared made a speech in front of the office espresso machine, holding a glass of Juve like he was accepting a Nobel Prize for most LinkedIn likes. He did it, he beamed, shirt too tight across the gut, eyes already drunk on the smell of press coverage. To the moon, everyone clapped, someone played Beyoncé. The interns did TikToks. The CEO posted a blurry selfie with the dev team captioned, "Nothing but respect for my engineers." Funny, considering 2 of them had been laid off with me and the third was covering his mouth because he was laughing too hard. By 11:30 a.m., the homepage had thousands of hits. Promo code Moonshot20 was trending on Threads. Influencers were posting unboxings. Twitter was frothing with praise from tech bros calling it the Shopify killer. Jared was retweeting everything with the hunger of a feral raccoon who just discovered a Whole Foods dumpster. Meanwhile, in a tiny Slack thread no one was watching, the head of finance dropped a message at 1:07 p.m. Quick cue. Anyone seeing actual payments hit the gateway yet? No response. At 2:42 p.m., we've got 8,000 checkouts recorded. But revenue is still zero? Jared responded at 3:16 p.m. with a thumbs up emoji and, should be a reporting delay, analytics always lags at launch. He CC'd Braxton, who replied with, haha, yeah, same thing happened when I did a merch drop for my podcast once. Finance went quiet after that, for a bit. Meanwhile, the party kept raging. Jared made sure the champagne kept flowing, and someone ordered poke bowls with the corporate card. A photographer roamed around capturing candid shots of people clapping at monitors like they were discovering gravity. But the cracks were starting to show. Customer support tickets began trickling in. Order confirmation received, but no charge on my card. Got a receipt, but nothing in my bank statement. Is this a scam? The usual noise during a high-volume launch, but louder. More frequent, at 5:38 p.m., a B-list influencer named Jilly Fit posted on Instagram, OMG, I bought the new product and it's everything. Thanks at company name, it got 24K likes in under an hour. Support checked her order. No payment, no transaction ID, no shipping trigger. Just a ghost order floating in the system like a drunk guest who snuck into the wrong wedding and left with a gift bag. Back in the office, DJ hired for the launch was spinning lo-fi remixes of corporate buzzwords. Jared was on a beanbag chair explaining CAC to LTV ratios to a VC intern who looked like he'd sell you a crypto rug pull and call it a vision board. And in finance, the silence was ice cold. Another internal ping, Jared, need a 50-min sync gateway connection, some data gaps. He replied, Loop in Braxton. I'm heading to the rooftop for a LinkedIn Live. The party went on, toasts clinked. Selfies snapped. Hash launch vibes trended locally. The espresso machine died from overuse and was replaced with cold brew kegs. But in the shadows of all that confetti and clickbait, something rotten was growing. You can only drink so much champagne before someone sobers up and starts asking, where the hell is the money? That moment was coming, and fast. It was around 8:22 p.m. on Sunday when the first real crack split the party glass. The office was mostly dark, launch week hangovers, silence broken only by Slack notifications, and the distant hum of a vending machine chewing on itself. Most of the team was off posting weekend wrap-ups like they'd just come back from a NASA mission. But deep in the finance war room, Marlene, head of numbers, queen of where the hell is the cash, was quietly panicking. She refreshed the dashboard for the 12th time. Revenue, $0.00, another refresh. Still zero. Pulls a manual dump from the payment vendor's API. Nothing, no transactions, not one, not a misfire, not a decline, just nothing. She opened a new email. Subject line, need immediate clarity, urgent body. Jared, I've checked logs, exports, and vendor dashboards. We have 0 recorded payment captures since launch. That is not a reporting lag. That is a functional failure. Marlene Jared saw it at 8:41 p.m. He didn't reply. Instead, he sent Braxton a Slack DM. Yo, can you double-check prod pipeline repayments? Might just be analytics delayed. Braxton replied at 9:03 p.m. with yeah, for sure. Do I still use the same creds you left in Notion? Jared, yes. And make sure we're pulling from the latest build Patricia left. It was stable. Braxton, on it. IT got pulled in around 9:30. Quietly, no fire alarms yet. Just a message marked magnifying glass tilted left investigation in a private channel. Potential mismatch between transaction logging and gateway capture. Pulling deploy logs for weekend push. The logs didn't lie. Last push to prod had Patricia's name on it, deployed via Jared's credentials, timestamped after her termination. They traced the diff. Matched her final staging commit, clean, functional, but still had one key line commented out, function capture funds, and one line still active, sandbox flag equals true, code that passed testing. Code that ran beautifully. Code that also made sure nothing got charged. Braxton piped up in the thread, wait. This looks like a test build. Was this supposed to go to prod? IT. Looks like it was pushed directly from staging after Patricia's access was revoked. Pause. Then Marlene again, this time in all company finance channel. This isn't a dashboard delay. It's a total payment failure. Someone in IT tried to soften it. We're still investigating. It could be a missing trigger. But then a quiet ping from Raj in QA, who had been silent for hours. Why is Patricia still the last verified committer before launch? Jared replied 2 minutes later with, that must be a mistake. I handled the prod merge myself. Raj, not what gets showing. Then he dropped a screenshot. Last successful commit. Author, Pitora's message. Fix Apple Pay loop reinstate capture funds. Before launch timestamp 2 days before firing deploy hash. Used for production push the air in the thread thickened like wet drywall. No one replied for 20 full minutes. Then a final line from Marlene, you used her test commit. In production, without checking. And in that silence, Jared began to sweat through his startup hoodie, realizing the product wasn't the only thing that launched. His career just went airborne too. Straight into a brick wall. By 7:12 a.m. Monday, the kombucha taps were still bubbling in the break room, but the energy in the office had curdled. The Slack chatter had died. The hash launch party channel was silent. No more GIFs, no more crushed it. Emojis, no more influencer screenshots. Just the digital hum of a company trying to claw its way out of a financial black hole. At 7:45 a.m., Jared scheduled a full-hands meeting titled, Clarifying deployment oversight mandatory attendance, the calendar invite came with no agenda, just the kind of vague title you attach when your ass is on fire but you still want to sound composed. Most people assumed it'd be a pep talk. What they got was a live autopsy. He walked in late, sunglasses on indoors, hoodie sleeves pushed up like he was about to perform surgery on the truth. First of all, Jared began, voice grave, hands clasped like a youth pastor who just found a vape in the communion tray. I want to acknowledge that this has been a trying weekend. No shit. He continued, we've traced the payment issue to a specific commit made by Patricia Torres before her departure. It appears to have been intentionally misleading. Code bypassed our payment gateway entirely. I don't want to say the word sabotage, but you just did, muttered someone from DevOps. He ignored it. We're taking this extremely seriously. Legal is involved. We're documenting everything. That last part was true because legal was involved, and they were already documenting everything, including the glaring hole in Jared's story. See, the security logs had timestamps, immutable ones, and they clearly showed Patricia's access was revoked at 5:11 p.m. on Friday. The production push happened at 6:24 p.m. It was deployed using Jared's own credentials. Patricia had no deploy privileges at the time of the push, and that one tiny, devastating fact was already sitting in the inbox of the outside counsel copied on the meeting notes. In real time, questions started rolling into the all-hands thread. If she didn't have access, how did her build go live? Was the commit reviewed? Who approved the merge? Why was a test build in staging 2 hours before production? Jared deflected like he was in a tennis match with a ghost. These things are complicated. There was confusion post-exit. We trusted certain variables that turned out to be unstable. It's easy to get caught in hindsight bias. Some poor soul from customer support asked, are we processing payments now? Dead silence. Then, no. From someone in infrastructure, just that. One word, cold as an invoice. Meanwhile, 136 miles north, Patricia sipped hot coffee on a cabin porch, laptop closed, her phone on Do Not Disturb. The sky was overcast, birds loud. Her flannel blanket had cat hair all over it. Perfect. She didn't watch the meeting live, but her filters lit up like Christmas. Emails with subject lines like, urgent payment fix clarification on prod deploy legal looped need Patricia context payment stack. She didn't respond. She just smiled, slow, tired, proud. By 11:03 a.m., the CEO joined the war room and asked only one question. Have we verified who pushed the faulty code? Silence. Then legal said it. We've confirmed the push came from Jared's account. We're bringing in forensic consultants to ensure chain of custody. That was the pivot point. Not just a payment failure anymore. Now it was negligence. Now it was liability. And while the company scrambled to spin it as a rogue ex-employee, the evidence whispered a different truth. The man who bragged about leading from the front had just walked them straight into the fire, with someone else's blueprint in his hands. And Patricia. She watched it burn with the peace of a woman who didn't light the match. She just declined to blow it out. By Tuesday, the office felt like a haunted WeWork. The once hyped product had become radioactive. Slack was a minefield of half-deleted messages, the hash launch party thread, renamed to hash general in a futile act of erasure. Every conversation started with just to clarify, and ended with someone getting looped in for visibility. Forensic consultants arrived in suits and expressions that said you're already too late. They brought clipboards, air of quiet authority, and the kind of restrained politeness you only see from people preparing a report that'll end someone's career. They didn't need long. By noon, the verdict was in. The deployed build included Patricia's staging commit. The line that bypassed the payment gateway, / capture funds, was uncommented. The sandbox flag remained set to true. There was no commit between that staging build and the live deployment. Patricia's credentials had been revoked before the push. Jared's admin account made the push. It wasn't even ambiguous. It was textbook. Git history told the story in perfect, timestamped detail. Jared had taken the last working version from staging, without reviewing the flags or the notes, and shoved it straight into production like a toddler slamming a fork into an outlet. At 1:14 p.m., legal called an emergency leadership meeting. At 1:32 p.m., Marlene forwarded the payment logs to outside investors. At 2:03 p.m., the CTO title on the org chart quietly disappeared from Notion. And at 2:48 p.m., someone in marketing tried to delete the To the Moon campaign folder from Google Drive but forgot to clear the trash bin. The gifts kept showing up like cursed relics of a failed prophecy. Meanwhile, Patricia sat at the cabin's tiny kitchen table, sipping tea now, coffee was done for the day, and flipping through her notebook. A real notebook. Leather cover, pen loops, no screens, no logins. She turned to the page dated Friday, the day she got fired. The margins were tight with scribbles, deployment notes, lines of logic she'd worked through during her last sprint. But dead center on the page was a sentence, underlined twice. Funny how one character can stop the money. She smiled at that. Not because she'd planned it, she hadn't. Not because she wanted them to fail, she hadn't wanted anything at all by the end. She'd just been tired. Tired of being ignored. Tired of getting talked over in meetings by someone who still said front end like it was a buzzword. Tired of Jared taking credit for builds he never read and features he couldn't spell. And so, when they fired her mid-debug, and they yanked her badge before she could re-enable a single line, she hadn't fought it. She'd walked out quiet, left the door open. They didn't ask questions. They just deployed what they didn't understand. By evening, the company's internal dashboard had a new alert banner: revenue system in error, do not use, until further notice. The investors had gone silent. Support was flooded with refund requests for orders that had never processed. And the payment vendor officially cut ties, citing gross procedural negligence. No one said Jared's name out loud, but his LinkedIn bio quietly changed from CTO at Company Rocket to seeking new opportunities builder, leader, product mind. Patricia closed her notebook, stepped outside into the cold air, and watched a hawk circle high over the trees. She felt for the first time in months still, not vindicated, not smug, just still, like she'd finally put something down. She was never meant to carry this long. It was Wednesday morning when the email arrived. Subject line: proposal for short-term advisory engagement urgent, sent from the desk of an external legal consultant the company hadn't used before. That was the first red flag. When lawyers start sending feelers instead of founders, it means there's blood in the water and too many sharks already circling. The offer was predictably sugar-coated desperation. Given your familiarity with the payment stack, unique qualifications, competitive consulting compensation, a few buzzwords about mutual resolution, one paragraph that smelled like liability management in a dress suit, no apology, no admission, not even a "we regret how your departure was handled." Just cold, transactional panic wrapped in a polite serif font. Patricia read it from her phone while wrapped in a wool blanket, watching fog roll down the hill behind the cabin. She sipped her coffee, reread the line about their continued trust in her professionalism, and quietly laughed. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. They got her response automatically, currently offline. Try commenting your own lines. By noon, 2 more emails came through. One from HR, masked as a reconnect conversation. One from Braxton, weirdly informal and riddled with typos. Hey, no pressure, but we'd love to get her help real quick. Definitely want to make things right. She archived it. Later that day, her inbox lit up again, this time not from the company. A class action notice, forwarded from a former coworker. Subject: join the lawsuit, compensation for unprocessed transactions. The list of plaintiffs was growing. Customers who had attempted to buy during launch and received nothing. Influencers who were promised commissions on sales that technically never happened. One mom who posted a scathing TikTok calling the product the Fire Festival of e-commerce. Then the vendor dropped the final anvil. Official termination of contract. Effective immediately. Cause cited: irresponsible deployment practices and failure to follow escalation protocols. The vendor's CTO even added a personal note: you had a good product. Shame it was managed by toddlers with admin access. The company's internal Slack went thermonuclear. Screenshots leaked. Someone anonymously posted the forensic report on Twitter. It trended for 6 hours under the hashtag #flagged by Jared. Meanwhile, Patricia was already packing. Her new job started next Monday. A startup run by 3 former engineers who believed in clean code and paid invoices. No Jareds, no Braxtons, no bootstrapped chaos masked as startup energy. Just proper reviews, reasonable deadlines, and documentation that didn't look like a ransom note. She spent the evening quietly, lit a fire, watched the flames dance, listened to the wind pick up outside the cabin windows. There was no dramatic music, no slow-motion montage, just the warmth of knowing she didn't have to raise her voice to be heard. The silence had done it for her, and they'd heard it loud and clear. The screenshot hit Twitter at 9:14 a.m. on Thursday. A single image, no caption. Just a cropped grab from the company's internal metrics dashboard, leaked by someone with just enough rage and just enough access. Revenue, day 1, $0.00 revenue, day 2, $0.00 revenue, day 3, $0.00 below that. In smaller font, transactions recorded, 12,402 payments captured, 0 no need for commentary, no spin, just silence. The kind that wraps itself around your throat. The post went viral in under an hour. Screenshots hit LinkedIn. Tech Twitter piled on. The startup ecosystem smelled failure like wolves scenting a wounded buck. Think pieces sprouted like weeds. When culture outpaces competence, the real cost of firing quiet engineers, sandbox flags, and startup fragility. By 11 o'clock a.m., the board had issued a formal statement. Jared stepped down. The CEO tendered his resignation. The company would be pausing operations to reassess infrastructure priorities. Translation: the money left and the brains were never there to begin with. Internal Slack logs leaked next. One thread showed Braxton asking, "Do we need a QA lead or can ChatGPT do that now?" Another, "Does sandbox mean beta?" They weren't embarrassing anymore. They were extinct. Support channels auto-responded with service unavailable errors. Customer refunds were processed manually by a third-party firm. Class action firms swarmed like mosquitoes. The startup's office lease was quietly listed on a commercial real estate site with the caption, Modern. Open concept, recently vacated. And 200 miles away, in a modest office with real chairs and working thermostats, Patricia logged into her new dev environment. No fanfare, no you saved us speeches. Just a clean repo, a properly labeled onboarding doc, and a calendar invite titled Welcome, Patricia. The desk was hers. The coffee was hot. The CTO actually knew what a merge conflict was. Sunlight poured in through the window, hitting her face just as she typed her first commit. Message: Initialize payment service, confirm NVAR set correctly. She paused a second, smiled to herself, then opened her notebook, the same one she carried out of the ashes. The final line on the final page, written in the same ink that once sketched out their broken gateway: They taught me to document everything, so I did. I just never said I'd comment it. They wrote her off. She rewrote the ending. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.